Morning. Okay. So I still need to make a few tweaks to this prompt, but before I post it on our Moodle, but I thought it was there's enough here for me to go on to kind of give you guys a survey of what we're going to be doing. So, whoops, I spelled grammars wrong. That's not good. So basically, what you guys are doing, you're doing pretty much a traditional type of research paper like you would do for pretty much any other type of humanities class, except I'm going to get rid of that word literary. But pretty much what you're going to be doing is you're going to be investigating some type of issue related to grammar. So think back to especially past 3 or 4 weeks, all the conversations we've had from those articles. Those articles kind of were the catalyst to discuss a lot of topics over the past several weeks, whether that topic is grading or assessment or classroom management, teaching grammar, plans and strategies. Should we teach grammar at all? That's been an issue that we've discussed. Um, Grading student writing, even going back to our grammar unit when we went over all that grammar. Think back to even some of those debates we had then. Like if you guys would want to take your timed writing and make it into a longer piece, for instance, that's something that you could potentially do. So you're pretty much going to investigate some type of controversial issue related to the study of grammar. And also, you could maybe think about race or dialect, code switching, things like that. That's also been a part of our conversations over the past several weeks. So whatever you guys found most intriguing, I would encourage you now to maybe start doing some research, start finding some articles and see what all is out there on your issue. And a good way to do it, a good way to actually start is go back to those articles that I gave you and see what that author's citing in their works cited page. And then that can kind of almost start that can start you on a path where you can see what they read and go down a little bit of a research rabbit hole. So I'll show you guys in a second, especially how to do that. 6 isn't accurate. So this project's going to take place over 2 steps. 2 steps. The first step's going to be due next week, and the final step's going to be due during finals week. Okay. So ideally, what you guys will be doing, you're going to do a research argument, but it's going to kind of take the length of like a conference paper. So like if you were going to go present a paper at a conference, and that's a high expectation, I know, but it's a 300 level course, so I hold you to that expectation. But if you're going to present a paper at a conference, usually somewhere about 7 pages or so is the is the good mark, because if you go over that, you're probably going to go over like the 15 minutes they allot you to read a paper at a conference. Depends on the conference, but if you go to some, you go over that 15 minutes, they'll cut you off. So you kind of want to go to that 15-minute time slot if you were going to present it. And in an ideal world, right? Actually might have you guys. Yeah, I think I will. I think I actually might have you guys meet during our final exam time. Because the one thing I would like to do is actually have you guys present your papers. So, but think about it like it's that 15. Think about it like it's about a 7-page paper, and you would ideally read it out loud in like 15 minutes. So this could be something that you guys could take potentially and develop into like a capstone project or something, even if you wanted, if you want to develop it even further after our class is over. So step one, though, is going to be you guys are going to write a topic proposal plus an annotated bibliography on your topic. So I'm going to ask that you come up with 7 sources related to your topic. You guys are going to write a proposal. A proposal is pretty much, I've never taught a class quite like this. I usually teach research papers involving literature, my literature classes. But a proposal is pretty much like a paragraph or two, and it's a sneak peek of what your paper is going to be about. So what's the big paper going to be about? Like, what do you foresee your argument's going to be? What type of scholarship are you seeing out there on your argument? And what direction do you see your topic going? So a proposal is kind of like a teaser trailer. It's a way to flesh it out, kind of flesh out your concept before you actually write the thing. So and it's usually about a paragraph or two to kind of flesh out where you see your argument. So again, are you writing about code switching? Are you writing about race or gender or whatever your topic might be? But not only is that what you're writing about, but what's your take on it? So like if you're writing about code switching, for instance, what's your argument? Are you building on what previous scholars have said about code switching? You guys know some of the articles on code switching because I've given them to you. So like, how are you going to build that argument out even further? So that's what the topic proposal is, and that's kind of like what the whole project is as a whole. You want to kind of think about this like it's a conversation. Like everything we've talked about in this class is a scholarly conversation. Like there's a whole conversation on grading. There's a whole conversation about code switching, or whatever issue we've discussed. So there's a whole inquiry out there about it. So your goal for the annotated bibliography is to kind of survey like what have people said about this topic. And if you know yourself what other people have said about this topic, then you can kind of put it together yourself what hasn't been said, and maybe come up with some type of original contribution to the field. That's how you do original research. Right? You kind of have to survey what's out there, maybe go into it with like a preliminary thesis in mind, but then as you read and learn more, don't let that thesis grow, right? You never want to do research saying, I'm going to argue this, I'm only going to find stuff that supports what I say. and call it a day. You kind of want it to go in with an open mind and let the research shape you somewhat. That way you can kind of tell for yourself what is somebody joined there. Yes, I'm still here. That way you can kind of tell for yourself what all's out there and what isn't. So that's the proposal. Then you have an annotated bibliography. And I'm going to give you guys plenty of examples of both of these on our Moodle page. But with an annotated bibliography, you always start out with a citation of your source, followed by maybe like a 6 to 7 sentence summary and analysis of your source. And I would probably, for you guys, I would probably even state maybe like 7 to 8 sentences, because for you guys, I would especially like you to analyze your source at the end. So like, what does this source have to say about your topic? How is this source going to be useful to your larger paper that you're going to do? And as far as how you cite it, how many of you guys in here are more, raise your hands, how many of you guys in here are more comfortable with MLA? MLA. No, APA. How many of you guys are more comfortable with that? You guys not comfortable with any of them? What's going on? What's going on here? Right? Comfortable with both? Yeah. What do you use in your other classes, Emily? APA. Okay. Shane, you probably use MLE a lot, don't you? Yeah. Nay, what have you used in most of your classes? MLE. How about this? I'm not going to mandate that you do either APA or MLE. I will let you do whichever one you're more comfortable, because I know them both. So while I'm an English scholar and prefer MLE, like I teach APA in my other courses sometimes. So cite in whatever citation style you're most comfortable. It has to be one of those two, though. Like I don't want to see you cite in like Harvard style or something. I'm gonna be like, what the hell are you doing? So one of those two. Those are the two most popular styles. So whichever one. So I'm not going to, unlike when I'm teaching 101 or 102, I'm not going to go over, unless you guys want me to, I'm not going to go over all that stuff with citations. Because you guys, it's a 300 level class. I'm assuming you've done it before. So I will, Thursday though, I will give you a key to like common citation. I'll give you a handout with common citations that you might run into. So that way you can maybe model yourself after that. So I'll give you guys a nice little handout for both APA and MLE on Thursday. But this is in a nutshell is what you're doing. Come up with 7 sources on your topic. And whenever you get into this, something that's this specialized, you kind of have to be a little creative with how you do your research. And I'm going to kind of give you guys strategies for how to do that. As far as a timetable for this, I'm going to say next Tuesday, the 18th, I'm going to ask for your annotated bibliography. So I'm going to give you guys exactly a week. Probably a week. I'll give you guys another week to do your final papers after that. I don't know what, I haven't looked at the final exam calendar yet. I'm not sure what day our class time falls on. I'll look before Thursday, but I'll probably have you guys have the actual final paper due whatever day that is. Like I said, I would like to maybe do some type of presentations during our final exam time where you guys can maybe present your work. Maybe like have 4 people present. We'll spend like 10 or 15 minutes with questions, and have the other 4% spend like 10 or 15 minutes for questions. I feel like that would be a good experience for you guys, especially if you haven't been used to doing a lot of public speaking and whatnot. And it'll prepare you, especially if you guys become academics, to present at a conference. So I'll see if we can get a couple of other people. It'll probably be hard. It's hard to wrangle anybody up, but I'll see if I can get a couple of other of my colleagues to join us for those sessions. So this is going to be due the 18th. And then, like I said, by that point, you will know your topic left and right. You will have done all of your research. Then you can start writing your argument from there. And we're going to sprinkle in presentations next week as well. So more on that Thursday. I wanted to spend today more or less going over research. So this is kind of the overview, and I want you guys to mostly focus on bibliographies first before I start going really in depth about how to write the actual longer paper. I'll do that more next week. So let me show you guys now how you find sources. How do you get to be a little creative with doing so? So there's a couple. Bluefield State doesn't have the best databases when it comes to humanities. There's a reason for that, because this, as much as our two humanities majors in here, much to your guys' chagrin, this really isn't so much of a humanities school, right? It's more of a nursing and business school, right? So with that said, we do have access to some stuff that I'm going to show you, but I'm also going to show you especially how to be a little creative and find some stuff yourself. Two-factor authentication is the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. I'm just saying. I actually got locked out of my Amazon account because I changed my phone number and I couldn't two-factor authenticate it. So I lost access to my account. I had to create a new one. That was sad. So there's two places that, and you guys to get an early start on this, maybe even as soon as today. Get an early start. Identify what you might want to do for a topic. Get going with this. But let me show you first, before I show you the databases that Bluefield has, let me show you first a little trick. This might help you. This is how you might do research that's a little bit more narrow. Let's say that you want to do your research project on how do you respond to student writing. Like do you circle every grammar mistake you see, or how do you teach grammar when they're making so many errors? It's almost incomprehensible. Well, if you guys remember, one of the articles that we read was Nancy Summers responding to student writing. And I'm on scholar.google.com, Google Scholar. You guys have probably used it before. Okay. So this is a classic article in the field. It was written in 1982. It's still being read today. Pretty much every, like if you go to grad school in English, you take a course called Teaching College Composition that teaches you how to teach English 101 and 102. Pretty much every class like that has read this article since the 1980s. Okay, well, on Google Scholar, there's a button that shows you how many people have cited the article. There's been a 1,639 people cite Nancy Summers' article. That's pretty incredible. My article, I've had 6 people cite it, right? So, but the number keeps growing though. Like I've had like 5 within the past years. I feel like people are finally reading my article. But if you click this, then maybe over here on the side, um, maybe try to restrict it to stuff written maybe in the last 10 years or so. So I'm going to say 2010, 2023. Well, you can maybe potentially go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here because the problem with Google Scholar is it's a big junk heap. You don't know what you're going to find on here necessarily, but you can kind of see other people who have cited Nancy Summers, and you could potentially find a source here for yourself. So here's looks like it's a book, the book called Effective Grading: A Tool for Learning and Assessment in College. Looks like there's a PDF for it. So, well, this is a looks like this is a book review of the book, but you could potentially pull that up and cite it. So that might be one good way to get started, is to like maybe find the article that I gave you in class and then see how many other people have cited it in the scholarship. Then maybe you'll find several, 2, 3, 4 articles related to whatever it is that you're doing. Sometimes on this Google Scholar, sometimes it'll give you a PDF that you can pull up. Sometimes it won't. This looks like it would be a good source for you, Emily, teaching English to second language learners in academic contexts, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So, yeah, this is one type of way to go down a rabbit hole. Let's narrow the search even further. Let's do 28. Let's do the last 5 years, 2018 to 2023. What works may hurt, the negative side of feedback in second language writing. It's coming up with a lot of stuff for you here, Emily. Emily's thinking about doing ESL for her project. Um, there seems to be a lot of recent scholarship on ESL just from looking at this. Language matters. Um, examining the language-related needs and wants of writers in a first-year university writing course. So sometimes on this site, it'll come up with stuff you can read right away. Sometimes you might come up with a title and it might not be something you can read right away. And I'm going to show you a workaround for that. But also going back, let's go back to our Moodle page. Like let's say that you wanted to do code switching. Well, if you go back and look at the article that I gave you, I think that article is under this week. Becoming adept at code switching. You can you can then kind of go in and look at what sources did this person reference. Um, this could be another potential way that you can kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole. Go, when you read articles, go to their works cited page and see what those people were citing. Then go read that. So the problem if you do something like Nancy Summers, that was written in 1982. She's citing stuff even older than that. So depends how old the article is that you're looking at. If it's a more recent article, this is definitely something useful to do. To go and look at their references, and then potentially you could cite some of this stuff for yourself. Let's say if you're doing code switching, let's say you really wanted to read this source called Preparing Teachers for Dialectically Diverse Classrooms. You would just need to go into the database and find it for yourself. Or get on, maybe it's on Google Scholar if you look. And if it's not on either, you can request it. So all this stuff you can get. The whole world of research is at your guys' fingertips. That's something that I always try to express to my classes. I mean, Bluefield State's library has kind of limited resources, but even still, if you're patient, you can get anything you need, but maybe within a day or two. If you go to some big school like WVU, you can get pretty much anything you need, instant gratification. But even here, right, you can get most anything you need. It might just take a day. So you got to be a little creative with how you do your research. This is a good way to do it. Scan through these. Whenever you find articles, scan through them, see who they're citing. Maybe if there's a title that really pops out to you, then you can go in and look up that article. That takes you down a rabbit hole. That helps you understand what the conversation is about your topic. But let me show you the main databases that we have here at Bluefield. So whenever you guys do your research, you want to make sure that you keep your MyBSU tab open. You start looking through the databases, open a new tab, because you might need to come back. But go to where it says A to Z library databases. Then click Academic Search Complete. You then need to log in with your Bluefield State credentials. But then it'll take you to this screen. So EBSCOhost is a corporation. It's kind of scary how knowledge works in this way. I don't know if you guys know this, but all of the knowledge and all of academia is owned by like 2 or 3 corporations, which is a little bit of a scary thought, right? Not you think to yourself, isn't academia utopian in a way, right? Isn't this stuff accessible for all? No, it's not. Academia is just as capitalist as anything else, and these companies own these databases. And EBSCOhost is but one of these companies. So this is really the only one we have access to. You go to a bigger school, you might get JSTOR. JSTOR is a popular database that you would use for humanities. I've scolded Dr. David McMillan, telling him he needs to get JSTOR. He pretty much told me, as long as I'm willing to pony up like $100 grand a year for it, right, we can get it for everybody. Right? These schools have to, all these colleges and universities got to dish out a lot of money for these databases. So frankly, we're lucky to have what we got with our limited resources here. Taught at the community college where I came here, they didn't even have this one. So yeah, it was a little hard to teach research there because we barely had any databases. But so if you guys go to the site, the first thing I would encourage you to do would be to create an account through the site if you haven't already done so. And if you have a Bluefield State email, you already have a Google account through Bluefield State. Like, this is my Bluefield State email address. I have an account already. If you have a Bluefield State email, you got a Google account. And so I just use my Bluefield State Google account to sign in. The reason why I tell you it's a good idea to create an account is if you find something here, maybe you spend 20 or 30 minutes just looking at the databases. Maybe you're just kind of finding stuff, and maybe you haven't read anything yet. So maybe you want to bookmark stuff to read later. Well, you can do that if you have an account. You can click folder, and then you can kind of bookmark articles that you can kind of come back to later to read. It's not only helpful to bookmark them for that, but like if you guys find the source, you can go back in and read it later, but you can also go back and click the cite button, figure out like, how's this source cited? If you're working with APA, you can go down to APA 7th edition. If you're working with MLA, you can go down to MLA, and it'll spit out a pretty accurate citation. So there's a few bits of clutter you can clean up out of these when they spit them out for you. For the most part, they're pretty accurate. You can also, if you guys find the source within this database, you can also save it to your Google Drive. Again, everybody has a Google Drive here at Bluefield. Bluefield's definitely a Google-dominated school. If you prefer Microsoft, you can save something you find on here to your OneDrive. Personally, I like Google Drive better than OneDrive. I feel like OneDrive's a very cluttered program. That's just me. You can print the article out. That's what I do. I hate reading articles on a screen. I despise it. I usually print them out, highlight them, and mark them with a pen. You can email it to yourself, save it to your computer. All this stuff you can keep. If you look at the PDF full text, here's an article. I teach Frankenstein a lot in my other courses. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, What Made the Monster Monstrous. So I can kind of go in and read the PDF from there, or print it out, or whatever I want to do. I don't know if how many of you guys in here have some type of Apple device, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac computer. How many of you guys have? Pretty much all of you. And there's actually a really good app on Apple devices that you can download. It's only on Apple, but it's an app called Notability. 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 And I think it's only like $2 or $3 for the app, but it'll be the best $2 or $3 you ever spend, especially when you do research, because you can save your PDFs to it, and then you can read them on your phone or whatever, but you can write on them. You can highlight passages from them. It's a really good app to download to do research, because it's sometimes I always kill the ink cartridges here at work, right? I never use my own ink, right? But for you guys, it might not be you might not want to spend tons of money on ink cartridges, right? So this is that program Notability is actually a really good way to catalog your articles, and then you can pull them up anytime and see your notes on them and stuff. And it's only like $2 or $3. If you're using a PC, really the only good way to annotate an article is if you're using Adobe Acrobat. And Adobe Acrobat makes you pay like $15 a month to even be able to use it properly now. So that program Notability is really good. I would, especially if you have a phone or a Mac computer or even an iPad, download it. You'll thank me later. It's a really good program, really cheap. You only got to pay for it once. You don't have to pay $15 a month like you do for Adobe Acrobat. But I went on a whole tangent there, but let me show you which databases in particular you want to look at for the stuff we're doing in this class. So Academic Search Complete is a big database. It's a big database with lots of random stuff. So you always want to search that one. But if you go up to the top and click Choose the Databases, I'll zoom in really good. If you guys even like want to whip your phones out in a second and take a picture of this so you'll remember later, I would encourage it. But so some of the ones that you always want to search the MLE International Bibliography. That is a database full of nothing but stuff related to English studies. So you want to search that one. Maybe you want to search the Literary Reference Center. Those will probably have mostly literature stuff, but they might have some rhetoric and composition stuff like we're doing in this class. But you probably also want to search Education Source, because Education Source is about education. So some of the stuff we're doing in this class is really education oriented. Maybe e-journals and e-books. Most of this other stuff, unless, like, let's say that you're writing about business writing or something, right? You might want to search the business database. So a lot of these databases have individual niches. Like, and it'll tell you, if you click this little green arrow, it'll tell you, it'll pull a little drop down menu and tell you what the database is about. But for English studies, I would recommend all the ones I checked here. So if you want to go ahead and take a screenshot of that, do so. That way you'll remember it later. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Show you how to do searches. So getting what you want out of this thing is sometimes a challenge because you have to know how to search good keywords. Like that's a bit of a struggle. Sometimes you have to play around with your search terms to get what you want out of this thing. So let's say that my topic that I want to search is grading student writing. How do I do that? So I'm just going to type student writing in one box. And notice here it gives you, this is language that search engines use. You can search and or not. So the search term I'm going to run is student writing, and notice here I'm putting GRAD with a star. The reason why I put the star there, this is a pretty handy trick to know. The reason why I'm putting a star there is because if you do, it'll search for every word That's a variant of that spelling. So grade, grading, grades. It'll search for all of those if I put that star right after those first four letters. That's a handy trick to know, trust me. That's a really nerdy thing to know, but it's a pretty handy trick to know. Let's see what it comes up with. Well, darn, 10,218 articles. I'm asking you to do 7. Okay? So there's lots of ways that you can work to narrow this down. So over here on the side, this thing's got articles going all the way back to 1881, for crying out loud. That's probably a little too old to go back. Only in literary studies do we go back to stuff that old. Even in literary studies, it's most of the time not very useful. So you want to maybe run. Let's do 1990, 2023, just to be on the safe side. Okay, I cut it like 1,000 out. Well, that's still a lot. So over here on the side, when I say student writing and grading, well, that's a pretty big category too. So it gives you a couple of other terms over here under the subject heading that you might want to look at. So let's say that you really wanted to think about how do you grade student writing in elementary schools. You might just click that subject that says elementary schools. Well, that took it down to 133. And that's something that's pretty digestible. You can then maybe kind of run some searches this way. And so let's say you wanted to click this first article, Research Informed Writing Instruction, Developing and Teaching Writing Across the Elementary Grades. This comes from the journal Literacy Today. When you get to this screen, I've already showed you these buttons where you can save the stuff to your computer or whatever. But one of the things that it'll do, it'll give you like a little paragraph abstract. The paragraph abstract kind of gives you a brief summary of what the article's about. If it doesn't seem like something that's going to be relevant to you, move on, go to the next source. There's going to be no shortage of stuff out there. And this is one that we can download and find in PDF. I don't know how useful this one would be. It's only like 3 pages long. Probably not going to get a lot of substance out of it. So that's something else you kind of got to gather for yourself. Is it too short to be useful? Is it too long to be useful too, right? That's another, what's the perfect balance there? Maybe like 10 to 20 pages or something. So you can pull that source up right away. Let's say you're going through this thing. Let's say you really wanted to look at third graders collaboratively writing online, interacting in multiple modalities across multiple spaces to build a tale and community. That looks to actually be a pretty recent article. It just came out September of last year. Note here that we don't have instant access to this article. It's something that's cataloged in this database, but the article itself is not in here. There's a reason for that. It's probably in another database that another company owns. So we can't get it right away. So let me just bang my hand against the table and tell you guys this. Just because you can't get instant gratification doesn't mean that you can't get it. And that's why it's really important to do your research early. Research is something you don't. I said this bibliography is going to be due next Tuesday. On Monday night, you don't want to be doing it because you might find something that's going to be real helpful to you, and then you can't use it because you don't have time to get the article. So let's say you really wanted to read this one. Well, going back to, let's see here, going back to the My BSU tab, if you go back where it says library resources, you can then scroll down to where it says interlibrary loan article request. If you click that, all you got to do is enter your contact information, so your name, your email, your phone number, in case the librarian needs to get a hold of you. But then the only information you got to give it is the title of the article. You can just copy and paste that in there. And then the author of the article. This has 2 writers, so I will copy paste that. And you got to do a little CAPTCHA. I hate CAPTCHAs. You got to do a little CAPTCHA and then submit. And Dr. McMillan, our librarian, will get that request. He will email you the article probably the next day. Like, he's super quick about it. I don't know if any of you guys have ever met Dr. McMillan, the librarian. He's a really nice guy, and he always busts his tail to help. There's nothing he loves more than to help students with library stuff. Well, the problem is a lot of professors don't really teach good library skills, so he doesn't really do that so much. So he'll probably be thrilled if he gets some of these requests from you all to send them back to you. So fill out, if you find an article that you can't get right away and you want it, request it. It's always a good thing to do. This is a service. This is actually a service that you guys are paying for in our library loan. So take advantage of it. But another strategy I would give you guys, let's say you wanted to read this one, Reading and Writing Motivation of 3rd to 6th Graders. Well, this one's 28 pages. This might be that nice balance, right? But the problem is time is currency. You don't want to spend your time reading 28 pages of something that's not going to be useful to you in the end. Sometimes that happens. That's just part of the pain of the research process. Sometimes that happens. But a good strategy that I would give you guys would be read the first paragraph or 2, scroll down and read the conclusion. So find the conclusion. And if it seems like it's going to be something that's useful to you, you can then make the judgment call to read all the stuff in the middle, so you'll know what the source is about, do an annotation. So read the beginning, read the end. Seems useful, read the middle. That's a good way to kind of judge whether it's going to be useful or not. I'd like to think of all the articles I've filtered out over the years that way myself. And then, of course, what's my strategy I give you? If you find an article that's really great article, pretty recent, go to their references, see what they're saying, and see if you can find that stuff yourself. So research is a big rabbit hole. Really, 7 sources isn't too much when you think about it, of all the stuff that's probably out there. So that is my lecture on how to do research. So let me pause now and ask what questions you guys got. Did I go too fast at any point about how to find any of this stuff? You guys feeling pretty good? You look overwhelmed, Curtis. You look just that's always a good thing. Mine hasn't fully kicked in yet, I don't think. Well, let me ask you guys this: have you guys had a real extensive tutorial on this kind of stuff before? No. Right. Same for you, Shane.
The only professor that I know that really tries to hammer this stuff is Dr. Reese.
Right.
I mean, she's all about instant stuff, and she doesn't want to use it. I can really even cut the outside.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Yeah. You want to find most of your stuff on these. There's actually a good reason for that. Like it's not just professors are being cruel and unusual, right? The reason why is all this stuff has to go through a really intense process called peer review. So like you guys know, I do a lot of different things, but one of the things I'm a big scholar of John Steinbeck, who wrote The Grapes of Wrath of Mice and Men, right? And if I want to publish something in the Steinbeck Review Journal, it has to go through that process. So I have to take my name off to kind of that way they're not like, oh, that's Jeff's article, we'll publish it, or we hate that guy, we're not going to publish it, right? That could happen, I suppose. But you have to take your name off. Like, who are the top experts in that field? They then read an article that they don't know who the article's from, unless word gets around that that's somebody's article. But they read that article. The experts decide: is this good new research? Is this worth publishing in our journal? Most of the time, stuff you find in these databases, a lot of these journals, some journals have harder acceptance rates than others. If you get an article into the journal PMLA, Publications of the Modern Language Association, that's the top journal in English studies. It has less than a 1% acceptance rate. So 100 people get their article in PMLA. I actually had a friend who recently got an article in PMLA. I was super proud of it. So it has to be cream of the crop to get in something like that. But even in most other journals, even if they only have like a 20 or 30% acceptance rate, that's still pretty low. So it has to be the top stuff to get into these. You got to be careful if you find stuff on academia.edu or a place like that. Anybody can publish it. Anybody can put any of their writing on academia.edu or a place like that. So, but that doesn't go through any review or scrutiny. So you kind of gotta watch there. Same for books. There's a lot of I frankly didn't really show you guys book sources much, but there's a whole world of book sources out there about all this stuff too. We just don't have a lot of books in our library. But same for books. Like you have publishing houses. Like let's say that I want to turn my doctoral thesis into a book. Something I've been contemplating doing. I'm thinking I'm going to turn it into a bunch of articles instead. Let's say I wanted to do it. Let's say I wanted to write a book. Well, there's all these university presses and stuff that publish scholarly books. Most of the time, scholars will spend all this time writing a scholarly book. Lord knows how many people read it. Probably not many. But it has to go through an intense review process to get through one of those scholarly presses. There's a lot of presses called vanity presses where it's self-publishing. Like you as the author pay to have it published yourself. Maybe they'll bind it up into like 100 different copies for you or something. You can maybe give them out. Well, just because you publish something through a vanity press, that doesn't mean anything because it didn't go through any review. You might see sometimes you have scholars that kind of act like they're a big deal, right? I've published 2 or 3 books. Well, if all 3 of them came from a vanity press that you self-published yourself, you're not really such a big deal. So you have to have a good filter for information. This is why I really encourage EBSCO and Google Scholar. You got to be careful with Google Scholar though too, because it will sometimes come up with stuff that's not so good. But especially on EBSCO, it doesn't get in here unless it's in a journal. So it's always good stuff you'll find for the most part. I actually looked on. Yeah, I think so. Let's see, it should be an MLA. Yeah, you can see the listing for my article, but you can't pull it up right away. It looks like. However, you can find it on. I actually looked a couple of days ago. I sometimes monitor Google Scholar to see stuff I've written. Yeah, I was actually. Yeah, there's 3 articles I've written right here, but I was able to pull it up yesterday on here. Yeah, you can kind of get an idea how many people have cited your article. Past couple of years, I've had a bunch of people do mine over the past couple of years. Sometimes it takes scholarship a while to percolate and to actually be read.